What if the very things you're holding onto are the chains that keep you from becoming who you're meant to be? What if your desperate need to control, to possess, to define yourself through external attachments, is actually the source of your deepest suffering? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who gave us concepts like the collective unconscious and psychological types, understood something profound about human nature. He recognized that our greatest growth doesn't come from acquiring more, but from learning to let go. Not the superficial letting go we hear about in self-help books, but a deep, psychological surrender that transforms us at our very core. Today, we're going to explore Jung's forgotten lesson about the power of letting go. This isn't about giving up or becoming passive. It's about discovering the freedom that comes when we stop fighting against the natural flow of our own psychological development. Jung understood that much of our suffering comes from what he called the ego's illusion of control. The ego, in Jungian psychology, isn't evil or bad. It's simply the conscious part of our personality, the I, that we identify with. But the ego has a problem. It believes it's in charge of everything. We wake up each morning with elaborate plans. We try to control our emotions, our relationships, our careers, even our dreams. We build rigid expectations about how life should unfold, but Jung recognized something the ego doesn't want to admit. The unconscious is far more powerful than our conscious will. Think about it. You've probably experienced moments when your unconscious revealed truths your ego didn't want to see. Perhaps through dreams that showed you hidden aspects of yourself, or sudden insights that emerged when you stopped trying so hard to figure something out. These experiences point to a fundamental reality. We are not as in control as we think we are. The power of letting go begins with recognizing this illusion. It's not about becoming powerless. It's about aligning our conscious will with the deeper intelligence of the psyche. It's about learning to dance with uncertainty rather than fighting against it. But what exactly are we holding on to that weighs us down? Jung identified several psychological burdens that keep us trapped in patterns of suffering. First, there are our attachments to outcomes. We become so invested in specific results that we lose touch with the present moment. A relationship must work out exactly as we envision. A career must follow a predetermined path. Our children must fulfill our dreams. These attachments create a constant state of anxiety because life rarely conforms to our expectations. Then there are the regrets we carry from the past. Jung understood that we often become prisoners of our personal history. We replay old wounds, clinging to resentment or shame that no longer serves us. We define ourselves by our failures or traumas, allowing past events to dictate our present reality. Perhaps most subtly, we cling to our identities, the roles and personas we've constructed to navigate the world. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear in social situations. The problem arises when we become so identified with these masks that we forget who we really are underneath. Jung observed that many people reach midlife and experience what he termed a psychological crisis, not because they've failed, but because they've succeeded too well at being someone they're not. The weight of maintaining these false identities becomes unbearable, and the psyche demands authenticity. One of Jung's most profound insights was the concept of the shadow, those aspects of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or hidden away. Letting go, in the deepest sense, involves making peace with our shadow. We all have parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge. Anger we've suppressed. Desires we've labeled as inappropriate. Weaknesses we refuse to admit. Jung understood that these rejected aspects don't disappear. They accumulate in the unconscious, gaining power and often emerging in destructive ways. True letting go requires what Jung called shadow integration. This means acknowledging and accepting the full spectrum of who we are, including the parts we don't like. It's a radical act of self-acceptance that goes beyond positive thinking or self-improvement. When we stop fighting against our shadow, something remarkable happens. The energy we've spent in resistance becomes available for growth. The parts of ourselves we've rejected often contain hidden gifts. The person who fears their anger might discover their capacity for healthy boundaries. The one who denies their vulnerability might find their ability to truly connect with others. Jung called the process of becoming psychologically whole individuation. This isn't about becoming more individual in the sense of being separate from others. It's about becoming undivided within ourselves, integrating all aspects of our personality into a cohesive whole. Individuation requires letting go of collective expectations, the shoulds and musts that society imposes on us. It means releasing our attachment to being normal, successful, or acceptable in conventional terms. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or irresponsible, but rather discovering our authentic path, even when it doesn't conform to external expectations. Jung himself faced this challenge when he developed his own psychological theories, departing from his mentor Freud and risking professional isolation. He had to let go of the safety of belonging to an established school of thought to discover his own truth. For each of us, individuation involves similar moments of letting go. Perhaps it's releasing the career path our parents expected us to follow. Maybe it's letting go of a relationship that no longer serves our growth. It could be abandoning beliefs that once gave us security but now feel constraining. This process often feels like death because in a sense it is. The person we thought we were must die for the person we're becoming to emerge. Jung understood this as a necessary psychological death and rebirth, similar to the transformation myths found in cultures worldwide. But here's what Jung discovered. When we stop trying to be someone else's version of who we should be, we tap into a deeper source of energy and creativity. We align with what he called the self, the archetype of wholeness that exists beyond the ego's limited perspective. This is true freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom to be who we authentically are, without the constant effort of maintaining false identities. Now let's turn inward. Jung believed that psychological insight without personal application remains merely intellectual. So I invite you to pause and reflect on these questions. What are you holding on to that no longer serves you? Perhaps it's an old hurt that you revisit like a familiar wound. Maybe it's a dream that you've outgrown but can't bear to release. Or could it be an image of yourself that requires too much energy to maintain? Where in your life are you fighting against reality instead of working with it? Jung taught that what we resist persists. Notice where you're pushing against the natural flow of your experience, trying to force outcomes or deny aspects of your situation. What aspects of yourself have you rejected or hidden away? Your shadow isn't just your negative traits. It also includes positive qualities you've disowned. Perhaps creativity you've labeled as impractical, or sensitivity you've seen as weakness. What gifts might be hidden in the parts of yourself you've tried to eliminate? And here's a deeper question. Who would you be if you stopped trying to be perfect? If you released the need to have it all figured out, to be strong all the time, to meet everyone's expectations, who might emerge? Jung suggested that we often discover our true calling not by addition but by subtraction. Not by becoming more, but by stripping away what we've accumulated that isn't truly ours. Like a sculptor who reveals the statue by removing excess marble, we find ourselves by letting go of what we are not. Take a moment to feel into this possibility. What would it be like to move through life with less attachment to outcomes, less need to control every variable, less investment in maintaining images that exhaust you? Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. But being who you are requires the courage to let go of who you think you should be. The power of letting go isn't about becoming empty or passive. It's about creating space for something more authentic to emerge. When we release our grip on the known, we make room for the unknown possibilities within us. This is Jung's forgotten lesson, that our greatest strength comes not from holding on, but from learning when to release. Not from controlling life, but from cooperating with the deeper intelligence that moves through us. The river doesn't fight against the rocks in its path. It flows around them, finding its way to the sea. The tree doesn't resist the changing seasons. It lets go of its leaves when winter comes, trusting in the renewal that spring will bring. We too can learn this wisdom. We can discover that letting go is not giving up, but giving into a larger truth about who we are and how we're meant to live. The journey of individuation, of becoming whole, begins with a simple but profound act, the willingness to release what no longer serves us. In that release, we find not emptiness, but spaciousness, not loss, but freedom, not an ending, but a beginning. Your authentic life is waiting on the other side of what you're afraid to let go. Jung's invitation remains as relevant today as it was a century ago. Stop trying to be perfect, and start being real. Stop trying to control everything, and start trusting the wisdom within you. The power of letting go is the power to become who you've always been, beneath all the roles, expectations, and fears you've accumulated along the way. It's time to set down what you've been carrying that isn't yours to carry, and step into the freedom that has always been your birthright. This is Jung's gift to us, the understanding that our wounds can become wisdom, our shadows can become strength, and our willingness to let go can become the key to our liberation.